Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery who I haven't reviewed anything from in quite a long time actually. Most of this brewery's core beers I reviewed within the first 500 videos that I did on the channel, but this one is one of their newer beers that I've just not got around to trying yet, so really curious to return to this brewery and see how we get on with this one. For this review then we are going to head to the Orkney Islands, which is the first of two sets of islands off the kind of northeast of Scotland, and we're returning to the Orkney Brewery to have a taste of the Orkney Gold. Said Orkney quite a lot there, but yeah, this one, as the name suggests, is a golden ale and it comes in at 4.5% ABV. As I said, I've reviewed most of the core range beers that these guys have released, you know, the Dark Island, the Northern Light, the Corncrake Ale, Red McGregor, what else? The Dragonhead Stout, that was one of my favourite ones out of all of them, and also the Skull Splitter, which is their wee heavy Scotch ale, 80 shilling, whatever you want to call it, and that was probably my favourite one that I've had so far. Their Christmas beer, which I think was called the Clutie Dumpling, if I remember right, that was also a really interesting one because it did just taste like Christmas pudding actually. But generally I would describe this brewery as being a little bit more kind of traditional, so if you want some kind of nice traditional Scottish ales, then this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out. But probably my favourite beers I've had would be the Dragonhead, the Skull Splitter, and I remember quite enjoying Northern Light as well, and Dark Island is a very nice beer. It's quite an unusual one that kind of fits into a few different style brackets from what I remember. But really curious to see how this one turns out. Like I said, one of their newer beers, and hopefully it turns out to be very nice, and definitely cool to return to this brewery again after quite a little while. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from the Orkney Brewery before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. They'll probably need to release some more beers for that though, but hopefully that comes. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, province, whatever it is that takes your fancy. There's all the different playlists of beers from different countries in there as well. You'll find this one in the Scottish beer playlist, which is being added to whenever I get the chance, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Orkney Brewery then. So for those of you that don't know, as I mentioned earlier, the Orkney Islands are the first of two sets of islands off the kind of northeast of Scotland, and they have quite a significant Nordic and Viking heritage, even more so than mainland Scotland does. So you'll see that in a lot of different names and things up there. There's quite a few people up there called Magnus, and you know, there's St Magnus Cathedral in Kirkwall and stuff like that. But Orkney and Shetlands didn't become part of Scotland until about 1468, and I believe it was the dowry of one of the Danish or Norwegian princesses that married the Scottish king at the time, or one of the Scottish princes. So yeah, they've only been with Scotland about half the time that Scotland has existed. The Kingdom of Scots, of course, was founded back in 843 when Kenneth MacAlpin defeated Athelstan down in the Scottish borders. So a little bit of Scottish history for you there. But on to the brewery itself then. So this brewery is currently owned by Norman Sinclair, who's an award-winning hotelier with various properties around Scotland. So Norman was born in Orkney, but he moved to Fort William at a young age, and in 2006 he set up his new company, which is called Sinclair Breweries Limited, which subsequently acquired two separate breweries. This is the Orkney Brewery and the Atlas Brewery. So the Orkney Brewery was founded originally back in March of 1988 by Roger White at the Old Schoolhouse in Sandwick in Orkney in Scotland. But the Atlas Brewery was founded in 2002 by Neil Cotton, and it merged with the Orkney Brewery in 2004 under the name Highlands and Islands Breweries. But this came about due to the retirement of Roger White and the subsequent acquisition of shares by Atlas. But Neil Cotton served as managing director of the Highlands and Islands Brewery Group for a period of time, and he drove a series of changes at the Orkney Brewery. But this company was then purchased in turn by Sinclair Breweries back in 2006. But the brewery itself is still based in the same Old Schoolhouse in Coilo, just a mile from the Neolithic sites. And I believe what happened was that a lot of the brewing operations, the Atlas brewing operations, were shifted up to the Orkney Islands. And what you'll find now is that the Atlas beers are, the Orkney Brewery have a range called the Atlas range, and that's all the old Atlas beers that are brewed under that. They're a little bit difficult to find these days actually. I've seen them in Waitrose, I think it was, in Stirling, but other than that I haven't really seen them around very much, and I can't think where else I've seen them. So yeah, the Atlas beers are a little bit more difficult to get these days. But the brewery itself now have 3 different employees who are involved with brewing the beer. This is head brewer Andrew Fulton, who's a graduate of the brewing programme at Heriot-Watt University. He joined the brewery back in 1994. Kevin Stirling, who's a South Londoner, and he'd been involved with the transport business before taking up brewing in 2005. And they've also got Magnus Flett, who's a former farmer from Harry, and he joined the brewery back in 2001. So they've got a pretty long-term brewing team, I have to say, and that's one of the things that makes these guys really quite interesting. But you will find that quite a lot with the breweries up in the Highlands and Islands. Their brew team seems to be pretty established a lot of the time actually. So yeah, interesting, I have to say. But like I said, this brewery, you can really consider them as quite a traditional brewery, mainly brewing the sort of old school kind of Scottish traditional ales, if you like, rather than the more modern kind of craft beers and things like that. But like I said, Dark Island is a very nice beer. I quite enjoyed Northern Light. That's a nice kind of sessionable beer too. Red McGregor's quite interesting if you want something a bit more malty. Dragonhead is a lovely stout, and Skull Splitter is a really nice example of a traditional kind of 80 shilling or 90 shilling, whatever, Scotch ale, wee heavy, whatever you want to call it. But that's probably my favourite beer out of all the ones that they do. So yeah, that's all the information I can really tell you for the moment about the Orkney Brewery. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, if you want to learn more about the different beers, you can either check out the website or you can take a look at things like Rate Beer, Beer Advocate and Untappd to get some more information on there. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So yeah, as you can see on the label here, they've got the standing stones of Orkney. You know, everyone goes on about Stonehenge, but people forget that in the Scottish Isles you've got these stones that are actually older than Stonehenge, from what I imagine. I mean, I think Stonehenge only gets the attention it does. Well, it is obviously a historic site and a significant site, but I think, you know, the sites that we have here in Scotland are a lot more remote, and I think, you know, they're often overlooked in favour of Stonehenge because of that. But there you can see the old kind of Celtic and runish kind of symbols there on the Orkney Brewery. On the Orkney Brewery symbol, I do have to admit I quite like that. There you can see that that's on the bottle cap as well. I'll just let the camera focus. But a really nicely presented label, this one. It says here, Orkney Gold is a well-balanced, crisp and refreshing hoppy beer, brewed by hand with Orkney in tune with the ecology of our beautiful corner of the Northern Isles. Visit our 5-star visitor centre and brewery. So yeah, I'll probably need to go up there at some point and have a little look at it. It tells you about the nose and the palate, the tasting notes there, but we obviously want to do that for ourselves in this video. But according to the website, it says that this beer is hopped with Columbus, Cascade and Amarillo, so all American hops in here, and it's also got Maris Otter, which is really quite a nice variety of English malt, always quite bready and biscuity from what I remember. So yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. Like I said, very curious to see how this one turns out. One of the newer beers in the range. Oh, it's gone a little bit crazy. But yeah, one of the newer beers in the range from Orkney Brewery. Now, I could have drunk this one in a pint glass, but to be honest with you, it's just my preference. I quite like tulip glasses because they're the best all-rounders for all the different styles, if you like. I do Belgian beers and craft beers and things like that, and to me this is just the best kind of all-round glass for aroma and flavour and things like that. It's good for pretty much any style. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely hazy golden colour. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that with me because of the red cover or from my drums behind me, but this is a lovely kind of bright, it's actually got a little bit of an amber tinge to it, but it's mainly a kind of pale goldeny straw colour. You can see there's a solid finger, I'd say maybe 3/4 of a finger of a frothy kind of cream coloured head on this one. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it does look pretty nice. And in terms of a golden ale, there's nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on. I'm curious with this to see what it's got in store. Oh yeah, I mean, straight away this smells like quite a traditional just, you know, camera sort of real ale, golden ale. The malt base of this one is quite nice. It reminds me a lot of the kind of Williams Brothers beers. You know, one of my local breweries down here in Clackmannanshire is of course Williams Brothers, and we've got Harveston close by too. And in my mind, Williams Brothers are very good when it comes to sessionable beers, and this one's got a kind of similar malt base to some of theirs. But yeah, the Maris Otter comes out beautifully in this. You can smell that lovely smooth white bready note in there, but then it's just got a little bit of a kind of biscuity note on top of it. It's a little bit like McVitie's Digestive, so it's really a kind of white bready base to this one with a little bit of a McVitie's Digestive biscuit sitting there on top. So the malt base in this is really nice. I have to admit, when it comes to English malts, I probably would say that Maris Otter is my favourite type of English malt, because it's just lovely, and it gives you a really nice, the breadiness you get out of it is very nice. Most English malts in my experience tend to be a little bit more grainy and dry, but Maris Otter I think is one of the exceptions to that. It's really more smooth and slightly sweeter in my mind. So yeah, the malt base in this is very, very nice, I have to say. On the hoppy side of things, for me, you can get a little bit of that typical kind of floral spicy note that you'd expect of the Columbus. You know, Columbus is quite often used by American breweries as a bittering hop for IPAs and things like that, but obviously in a beer like this you're not going to have all that much in the way of bitterness. I mean, you'll be talking about maybe 25 or 30 IBUs or something in a beer like this. I'd be surprised if it was more. So yeah, the Columbus will probably have been used as the base hop for this one, and they'll have added that very early in the brew to give you these bitterness units, and probably later on it'll be the Cascade and the Amarillo, because you can pick out a little bit of that nice oily orange that you would expect of the Amarillo, and you can also get some of the slightly red fruity notes that you would expect of the Cascade as well. Cascade normally gives you a little bit of grapefruit, to be honest with you, and if you put it in IPAs and things, but when you put it in more traditional beers like this, I think it often gives you a little bit more of a red fruity note. But for me, it's mainly the Amarillo orange that comes out of this one. On the green side of the hops, I'd say there's a teeny little bit of earthiness comes out of this one, but mainly it leans towards the grassy end of the spectrum. There's some nice sort of floral elements in there as well, but mainly it's got a nice kind of light grassiness to it, this beer, in terms of its aroma. So overall, lovely smooth and slightly sweet malt base, juicy orangey fruits, quite oily actually, I should say that, and a nice sort of fresh kind of grassy note to the beer as well, but a very inviting smelling golden ale actually. I don't get to review all that many golden ales anymore, but I think this one will be really quite nice. So let's have a taste of it then and see how we get on. This one is the Orkney Gold from the Orkney Brewing Company, or the Orkney Brewery up in Sandwick on the Orkney Islands here in Scotland. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, Skål. Oh yeah, that's really nice actually. I mean, this is a very good kind of sessionable beer. It does have a little bit of that graininess to it as well actually, which is quite nice. So yeah, I mean, this is a style that you don't see brewed all that often back over in Sweden. Mainly when you get light sessionable beers like this, a lot of the breweries will brew, you know, a German Pilsner or a Czech Pilsner. Sometimes you get Dunkels and Schwarzbiers and things like that as well, or they'll brew session IPAs. So to come back to these kind of beers is always quite interesting, because there's really not that many breweries brewing the sort of English style beers, I feel like, because I think it's fair to say, you know, a golden ale like this is more of an English style of beer than it is a Scottish beer. Maybe older people in Scotland watching the channel might disagree with that, but I mean, the traditional Scottish beers, from what my dad tells me, were, you know, the Shilling series, the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 Shilling beers. So they were a bit darker and more malty and grainy. The golden ale, I think, is something that's kind of come up into Scotland from England mainly. But still, I quite like them. And I mean, from memory, I think this is one of the more hoppy beers that you'll find from Orkney Brewery. I mean, I remember Northern Light being a little bit smoother than this, and I remember Corncrake being a little bit more grainy, actually. This one's got a little bit more of a kind of hoppy bite to it. It's a little bit more like a kind of hoppy golden ale, actually, which is quite nice. But it's a solid beer, this. I like it. You know, if you want a nice, sessionable, drinkable beer, you can't really go wrong with this. This is good, so thumbs up to the Orkney Brewery for this one. It's definitely cool to return to this style and the brewery after quite some time. So yeah, let's try and break this down a little bit then. So, middle of your palate, you can feel a nice sort of smooth bready quality, and that just blankets the middle of your tongue. But quite quickly, you'll notice that that develops a little bit of graininess in there. I wouldn't be surprised if there is another type of malt in there as well as the Maris Otter. I mean, quite often it's quite common to use a little bit of pale malt in things like this, but it's definitely English malt that's been used in this, unless it's Scottish, of course, because it's got that distinctive graininess, and you'll see that develop after the initial taste. You get a little bit of a grainy dryness to this one in the middle of the palate, but as you go further into the centre of the tongue, you'll pick out a little bit of a, there is almost a teeny bit of sweet caramel right in the middle there, which is what's covering the alcohol, and then as you move further out, pardon me, from the centre of your palate, that's when you start to get the more McVitie's digestive, biscuity type notes out of this beer. So I mean, it's a fairly kind of standard malt base that's in this one. You might get one or two woody undertones to it, if you go to the front corners of your palate and move in, you might get some very slight woody subtleties to it, but mainly it's quite a grainy, bready quality with a little bit of teeny bit of caramel in the middle of the tongue, and then biscuity notes otherwise, and you can feel it smooths out a bit definitely as you come further forward on the centre of the palate. But yeah, the malt base in that, it is quite nice, and I would say as well, it smoothens out a little bit the more that you drink of it. But on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you definitely get a wee bit of earthiness there. That'll be from the Columbus, but as you come further forward along the sides of the palate, you start to get more of the nice kind of big floral aromatic notes, and for me, that is straight up Columbus. I mean, Cascade is, you know, sort of 7-8% alpha acid, so it will give you a fair bit of bitterness if used at the right time in the brew and in the right amounts. Amarillo, I think, is about 10 or 11%, maybe even 12% alpha acid. So those two hops will give you a fair bit of bitterness, but the thing for me with the Columbus is that it's got that distinctive spiciness, so I suspect that the Columbus has been added earlier on in the brew to give you that little bit of hoppiness out of it, but then round the front curve of the palate it's definitely lighter and grassier, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get the little oily bubble that kind of rolls out, and you get the fruity esters pushing their way out of the beer. And there's an interesting balance there between the Cascade and the Amarillo, I think. But yeah, that is nice. That the fruitiness gets a little bit more oily too. So if you go to the back of that palate, of the palate there, you can pick up a little bit of those darker fruity flavours, like the grapefruity notes that you would expect of Cascade. You know, there is some of that present there, but that very quickly it sort of blends in with the more spicy floral elements for me. But then it really gives way if you when you come forward, it comes a little bit more. It blends a little bit more into the nice kind of oily orangey qualities in the beer as well. You get the more oily orange further forward, but around the edge of the palate you definitely get some of that kind of citrusy, grassy kind of ester coming out of the beer too. So it's really quite interesting, the transitions that this make. I mean, Cascade has always been, it's been coming more into my mind again recently. You know, I always think of Schiehallion, which is one of the first sort of craft beers that I tried from Scotland, one of my local beers here. And Cascade has become very distinctive to me because of that particular beer. So I really like Cascade actually as a hop, and the way that it comes out quite nicely in this one really suits me. It's the way the grassiness comes out, because it's almost got this kind of German noble type grassiness to it. You really get that around the front edge of the palate here, but you definitely get a little bit of the American oily fruitiness in this one too from the Amarillo. But in terms of its flavour profile, this is really pretty nice. As I say, I wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again. It's a little bit more bold, I would say, compared to some of the other beers that you're going to get from these guys. The other ones are all very good sessioners, Skull Splitter aside maybe, because it's a little bit more kind of boozy and things. But overall, this one is really pretty damn nice, I have to say. So thumbs up to Orkney Brewery for this one. I'm sure they've got a special beer, like a special reserve beer or something like that, that I should have a look at some point. But I might be thinking of the Swanee Brewery, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. Or Valhalla Brewery, maybe. I forget. But yeah, this is a really interesting beer, this one. It's definitely one, it's quite readily available. You can find this in a lot of supermarkets here in Scotland, so if you want a kind of traditional golden ale with a little bit more hop bite to it, you will quite enjoy this one. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I mean, I would say that this beer is fairly, it's kind of at the bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation has a bit of crispness to it. The mouthfeel overall is a little bit oily. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think we're talking maybe 25-30 IBUs out of this beer at most. Probably more likely 25, to be honest. There's a little bit of bitterness coming from some of the grainy notes in this beer too. But you've got a nice little bit of fruitiness to it, some oily, fruity juiciness in there as well. But overall, it's a really nice, quite solid, sessionable golden ale, this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Definitely cool to return to this brewery after quite some time. And cool to have a go at this beer, because I've seen it around so many times and just never reviewed it until now. So there you are, another beer from the Orkney Brewery reviewed for you here on Rampant Lion Reviews. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Orkney Brewery as well. It's been cool to return to these guys, as I mentioned, and hopefully they've got a few more beers for me to review for you at some point fairly soon. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Orkney Gold, a 4.5% golden ale from the Orkney Brewery in Sandwick on the Orkney Islands to the northeast of Scotland. Till the next time, Slange just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slange, Skål, cheers.